right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin this lesson by giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High and the proper names in the Paleo Hebrew tongue. I want to say Kal Halayim, La Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Kakadash Ma'amath. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, whom the world ignorantly and willingly call God or Jehovah. Bahashim meaning in the name of. Yahushai meaning he who delivers, whom the world ignorantly and willingly call JC today. I want to give a double honor to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who were well, and another double honor to my elder as well, Ahar One bin Yasha Allah of the Lions Den Camp here in Jacksonville, Florida. Salutations to the 144,000 hopeful elect pushing this truth across the four winds, and to the 1/3 remnant believers on Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, Shalom, Shalom. It's going to be a quick lesson put together through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, and I pray that it be edifying. So, basically in this lesson, I'm just going to basically bring out Balaam the dragon, and it goes into the second time that Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. So, this story, it basically resembles faith. You know, it resembles the trust that we are to have in Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. You know, and it resembles the resilience, you know, that our forefathers had when it came to believing and trusting in Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. So this is Balaam the dragon, chapter 1, verse 1. It says, "And King Astyages was gathered to his fathers, and Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom. And Daniel conversed with the king. It was honored above all his friends." So first and foremost, man, if you read, you know, throughout, you know, Daniel basically saw, you know, kings come up and kings go. You know, he saw Nebuchadnezzar. You know, he saw, King Astyages, you know, Cyrus of Persia. He saw Nebuchadnezzar's son as well. So that's why he said he removed kings and he set it up kings. You know, so each time when a new king came around, you know, the Lord used Daniel to show that king who really running things. You know, so verse 3, it says, "Now the Babylonians had an idol called Baal, and there were spent upon him every day 12 great measures of fine flour and 40 sheep and 6 vessels of wine." So the idol, so basically, you know, people set up an idol, you know, in their house. You know, they'll burn incense to the idols. They'll give the idols, in this case, they're giving the idol food. You know, they're giving him a whole bunch of food and a whole bunch of wine. Verse 4, "And the king worshipped it and went daily to adore it. But Daniel worshipped his own God. And the king said unto him, Why doest thou not worship Baal?" So imagine the mindset that, you know, these Christians have today. They set up their idol, JC, Jesus, Jesus Christos, you know, not knowing the history on how those things came to be. But they worship that idol, and they try to tie that idol to our Bible. You know, they try to tie that idol to our Bible, you know, when that's not the Lord's name. The Lord's name is Yahushai. Verse 4, "And the king worshipped it and went daily to adore it. But Daniel worshipped his own God. And the king said unto him, Why doest not thou worship Baal? Who answered and said, Because I not worship idols made with hands, but the living God, who have created the heavens and the earth, and have sovereignty over all flesh." So we worship the God of heaven, you know, the God of earth, Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. You know, at this time, you know, Yahushai wasn't on the scene in the flesh. He haven't came in the flesh yet, you know, but he was still, you know, in heaven, you know, doing, you know, delivering us like out of Egypt. You know, he was in the fire with the 3 holy children. Verse 6. Then said the king unto him, Thinkest thou not that Baal is the living God? Seest thou not how much he eateth and drinketh every day? So they was bringing all that food, but every time when the king came, the food was gone. Verse 7. So imagine, I was reading this yesterday, and I'm just imagining how it's going. You know how Jake be. Well, we already know what it is. He probably already seen, you know, Daniel probably, you know, going around the kingdom. He already seen how they got a door. You know, he already seen, you know, how they be sneaking and doing all type of stuff. So he already, so you know how Jake, we'll hear some rumors and stuff, but certain people don't know about what be going on. But Jake being Jake, we'll know what's going on. Verse 7. Then Daniel smiled and said, O king, be not deceived, for this is but clay within and brass without, and did never eat or drink anything. But every time the king come, the food will be gone. So the king was wroth and called for his priests and said unto them, If ye tell me not who this is that devoured these expensive, ye shall die. But if ye can certify me that Baal devoured them, then Daniel shall die. For he has spoken blasphemy against Baal and Daniel. And Daniel said unto the king, Let it be according to thy word. All right, so we're gonna see. Let it be according to thy word. We're gonna see if your idol be eating and drinking all this food. Verse 10. Now the priests of Baal were 70, besides their wives and children. And the king went with Daniel into the temple of Baal. So Baal's priest said, Lo, we go out, but thou, O king, set on the meat and make ready the wine and shut the door fast and seal it with thine own signet. You know how they had a ring, and it'd be a clay, and then the king will put his ring on the clay, and that let everybody know, hey, nah, this a king's signature. Can't nobody open this but the king, during that time. So it says, verse 12, And tomorrow, when thou comest in, if thou findest not that Baal have eaten up all, we shall suffer death, or else Daniel that speaketh falsely against us. And they little regarded it, for under the table they had made a privy entrance, a private door, whereby they enter in continually and consume those things. So, they was the one eating all the food. The king ain't know about the private door that, the king will put all this food before his idol, and it's free food in there, man. We might as well, man. Baal can't eat nothing. You feel what I'm saying? So the king coming back every day thinking that Baal really eat the whole time is, those those men and their children and their wives coming back having a feast every single day. Right? It says, verse 14, So when they were going forth, the king set meats before Baal. Now Daniel had commanded his servants to bring ashes, and those they strewed throughout all the temple in the presence of the king alone. Then went they out and shut the door and sealed it with the king's signet. So departed. So basically, Daniel put a whole bunch of ashes on the floor to the purpose to see if Baal really eating. So if Baal really eating, the ashes gonna be, everything gonna be everything. Basically, the ashes gonna still be in play. So right, they seen it. They sealed it with the king's signet, and they departed. It says, now in the night when the priests with their wives and children, as they were wont to do, and did eat and drink up all, in the morning betime the king arose, and Daniel went with him. And the king said, Daniel, are the seals whole? And he said, Yes, yeah. And he said, Salakia. And he said, Yeah, O king, they be whole. And as soon as he had opened the door, the king looked upon the table and cried with a loud voice, Great art thou, O Baal, and with thee is no deceit at all. Then laughed Daniel and held the king that he should not go in. So imagine this. Imagine Daniel laughing. Hold on. Hey, don't go in. Don't step not one foot in there. Take a look around. And said, Behold, now the pavement, and mark well whose footsteps are these. In the ashes, Daniel laid the ashes. And the king said, I see the footsteps of men, women, and children. And then the king was angry and took the priests with their wives and children, who showed him the privy doors where they came in, and consumed such things as were upon the table. Therefore the king slew them and delivered Baal into Daniel's power, who destroyed him and his temple. So right, it says, and in that same place there was a great dragon, which they of Babylon worship. And the king said unto Daniel, Wilt thou also say that this is of brass? Lo, he liveth, he eat it and drink it. Thou canst not say that he is no living God, therefore worship him. Then said Daniel to the king, I will worship the Lord my power, Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, for he is the living God. But give me leave, O king, and I shall slay this dragon without a sword or staff. The king said, I give thee leave. Then Daniel took pitch, fat, and hair, and he seethed them together and made lumps thereof. This he put in the dragon's mouth, and so the dragon burst in sunder. And Daniel said, Lo, these are the gods you worship, When the Babylonians heard that they took great Salakia, when the Babylonians heard that they took great indignation and conspired against the king, saying, "The king has become a Jew, and he have destroyed Baal, he have slain the dragon, and put the priest to death." So the Babylonians, the people of that country, they was mad, because they worship these idols, they worship that dragon, they worship Baal, just like 2/3 of our people here. They worship Jesus, which is a Greek word which means hail Zeus. You see what I'm saying? Which goes back to that idol, Baal or Baal. You see what I'm saying? So the Babylonians was mad. And it says, verse 29, so they came to the king and said, "Deliver us Daniel, or else we will destroy thee and thine house." Now when the king saw that they pressed him sore, being constrained, he delivered Daniel unto them, who cast him into the lion's den, where he was 6 days. So you read it in in the Old Testament, how Daniel was in the lion's den for 1 day. He was in the lion's den for 1 day, I believe, because he was praying to the Lord. They basically made a decree that can't nobody pray to their power for 3 days or for 30 days or something like that. And Daniel, he wasn't hearing none of that. Daniel still with his window open, praying to the Lord God, facing toward the east 3 times a day. You see what I'm saying? And so they basically got Daniel put into the lion's den. He was there for 1 day, and then, when the king came to him, Daniel was still alive. That was the first time he was in the lion's den. But this second time, he was in the lion's den for 6 days. It says, who cast him into the lion's den where he was 6 days. And in the den, there were 7 lions, and they had given them every day 2 carcasses and 2 sheep, which then were not given to them. So they ain't even feed them for the day, to the intent that they might devour Daniel. Now, there was in jury a prophet called Habakkuk, who had made pottage and had broken bread in a bowl, and was going into the field for to bring it to the reapers. The reapers, those that work the field, like farmers. So this just shows how Yahweh Bahashim Yahshua set everything up, for his purpose, for his will to be done. So Daniel was in the lion's den for 6 days. They didn't feed the lions because they wanted the lions to destroy, they wanted the lions to devour Daniel. And now you got our brother that's all the way on the other side of the the country, the world. He on the other side of the world, and he cooking. It says, now there was in jury a prophet called Habakkuk, who had made pottage and had broken bread in a bowl, and was going into the field for to bring it to the reapers. But the angel of the Lord said unto Habakkuk, go, carry the dinner that thou hast into Babylon unto Daniel, who was in the lion's den. And Habakkuk said, Lord, I never saw Babylon, neither do I know where the den is. Right? Verse 36. Then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown and bare him by the hair of his head, and through the vehemence of the spirit set him in Babylon over the den, transported that man. You feel what I'm saying? The vehemence of the spirit, like grabbed him by the head. Phew. You see what I'm saying? Brought him to the den in Babylon. That just shows how Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua is going to come through for us regardless. Like we done been in plenty of situations to where the Lord deliver us out of situations. Like I know for a fact I done been in plenty of situations and the Lord, deliver me. I mean, one time I was going through it so bad, and I'm praying for an hour straight. Lord, I need you to move a mountain. Lord, I need you to move a mountain. I need you to move a mountain for me, Lord. Like, please, I need you like to move a mountain for me. Whole time, Lord, like, man, the mountain already moved. I went there, the mountain was moved like all I had to do is sign some papers. And I got something that you wouldn't even be able to get, just easily. All I did was sign some papers, and the Lord, bless me. You feel what I'm saying? It says, verse 36 again, then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown and bare him by the hair of his head, and through the vehemence of his spirit set him in Babylon over the den. And Habakkuk cried, saying, O Daniel, take the dinner which God has sent thee. And Daniel said, Thou hast remembered me, O Yahweh, neither hast thou forsaken them that seek thee and love thee. So Daniel arose and did eat, and the angel of the Lord set Habakkuk in his own place again immediately. Transported this man across damn near the world, because he said he never been to Babylon, you know. So through the vehemence of his spirit, grabbed him by the hair, took him where he gave Daniel the food, you know, that food that was prepared for the Lord. For the Lord's servants. You see what I'm saying? And I can attest that when you doing something for the Lord's servants, man, the Lord be right there, like, on you. You get what I'm saying? Like, certain times I make lamb for the brothers. You know, just the Lord put the spirit on me to make some lamb for the brothers. hey, I have a dream. I had a dream. I was talking to my elder in the dream, and he was holding up. He was kind of like holding up his hands. You know, this is just small stuff. He was like holding up his hands, and in his dream, he was looking at me to make sure that I pay attention to his hands. You feel what I'm saying? He make sure I pay attention to his hands. And then it's like when I woke up, as soon as I woke up, my children was watching the show, and I heard the lamb dinner. It was like the TV was singing, wash your hands. Like when you make it, like when I be cooking for the Lord's Salakia. Somebody with some music. But it's like it's just a simple fact. I was cooking for the Lord's men. So like, hey man, make sure you just keep washing your hands over and over and over and over again. You feel what I'm saying? Woke up, TV, the children's show, just wash your hands, you know what I'm saying? Just small stuff. So, Lord, I got you, I promise, But that dinner that basically Habakkuk took Daniel was from the Lord's hand, basically. He made sure that it came from his prophet. You feel what I'm saying? Verse 38, and Daniel said, thou hast remembered me, O Yahweh, neither hast thou forsaken them that seek thee and love thee. So Daniel arose and did eat, and the angel of the Lord sat Habakkuk in his own place again immediately. Upon the 7th day, the king went to bewail Daniel. He thought Daniel was dead. And when he came to the den, he looked in, and behold, Daniel was sitting. Then cried the king with a loud voice, saying, great art thou, O Lord God of Daniel, as there is none other besides thee. And he drew him out and cast those that were the cause of his destruction into the den, and they were devoured in a moment before his face. So that just shows the power of the Most High. That just shows the power of the Most High. I remember the brother out there in Dallas was doing a lesson to where he was teaching the Bible. He was teaching the Bible. He was at camp. He got locked up for teaching, out there in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. And when he got to the judge was reading out while he was locked up, and the judge kept saying the white man is the devil. Saying the white man is the devil. Lock the brother up. And the brother, when he got his lunch bag, in the jail, when he got his lunch bag in the jail, he only had one pack of cookies in his he was hungry before he went. Mind you, he was fasting all day. He went to jail fasting. He only had one pack of cookies in his bag, and he had to give his sandwich away because it had pork on it, or what the case may be. And then he was just sitting there thinking to himself. He heard something hit the ground, and it was a pack of cookies. You see what I'm saying? Out of nowhere. Hey, bro, it just shows like how the Lord is going to come through for us, like no matter what. I'm gonna get another precept. One of my favorite precepts in the Book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 19, the last verse. It says, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 19, verse 22, it says, for in all things, O Lord, thou didst magnify thy people and glorify them, right? Neither didst thou lightly regard them, but didst assist them in every time and place. So when you alone and you going through something, that only the Lord is able to deliver you from, he going to be there to help you, especially if you've been calling on his name in truth and sincerity and considering him every day. He looking at you, he see the reflection of his son. The Lord going to come through for you, and you can't let the world basically take that away from you. You got to keep that. You have to know that. You have to understand that, because the times that we coming into, it's going to be some treacherous times. You're not going to be able to buy or sell unless you have the RFID, so how you going to eat? You're going to have to trust in the Lord, that he's going to feed our wives and our children. He's going to shelter us. He's going to make sure that we okay while everybody else in the whole world going through it. So you have to believe that wholeheartedly, and fashion your life in a way to be prepared to be taken care of by the Lord, and that's the lesson. I pray this lesson was edifying. Shalom, on to the next.